I've never fully realized it, but day and night cycles just might be one of my favorite things you can incorporate into any game. And really, I'm talking adventure games, not something like Animal Crossing. Majora's Mask is probably the best example for me, having every NPC move around this town in real time based on an in-game clock, letting you see things they only do at certain times of the day. It's just such a good and enticing way to bring more life to these worlds, if you know what I mean. It's really cool. And that brings me to Chulip, a game that also has a day and night cycle and similar to Majora has every character move around in real time. Of course, that's not the thing that caught my interest for this one. It was definitely the fact that the main gimmick for it is kissing people. My god, already that is extremely bizarre. Chances are most of you haven't even heard of this game, and for good reason. It was developed by Punchline, who were made up of former members from Lovedale, who some of you might know for Moon Remix RPG Adventure, with that game most notably being directed by Yoshiro Kimura, who came back to direct Chulip 5 years later. Although you more likely know Kimura for releasing one other game under Punchline, Rule of Rose, which despite its crazy controversy, actually doesn't share much direct connection with Chulip. But here's the sad part. With Chulip, it was released pretty late into the PS2's lifespan, and based on the surrounding circumstances, it most likely sold terribly. Which, yeah, that's how it goes with a lot of the obscure games I talk about. Chulip actually first released in 2002, Japan only, and it took, and I'm not kidding when I say this, 4 whole years for it to come to the US. The reason for this? Well, apparently the developers had a busy schedule, but honestly, I'd be more willing to believe they didn't want to translate it at all because this game would not fit a Western audience. So combined with the fact that Chulip was already bizarre with its nature and its very Japanese-oriented humor, it quickly fell into obscurity. That is quite the intriguing history to say the least, and after all of that, I'm here to take a look at it once and for all and just try to see what's hidden inside of it. Surely there's gotta be something interesting with this game. I mean, come on, looking at these character designs, they're unique as hell, and you're able to kiss all of them. I want to find out why no one ever talks about it. Unfortunately, it's kind of absolutely impossible to get your hands on, cause, yeah. But thankfully you're still able to play on real hardware thanks to a backup. Thank God, man. Look, I'm not saying you should do this, but just know that's what I'm doing. I do want to make it clear I have a real copy though, so this isn't some illegal dump or whatever. I just kinda forgot to get, footage of it. Even burning this game was a neat process, because if you don't know, Chulip was one of the very few PS2 games released on CD, not DVD, so I had to somehow convert that format to work on an actual DVD disc. I've tested it before, and I think it'll work fine though, so yeah, let's plop it in and finally see what this thing is. Chulip opens up with the main protagonist and the love interest meeting under a talking tree, where they hope to establish their everlasting love with one kiss. You can name both characters since they don't have official names. I named the girl Love Dog. I don't know why. You could dislike if you want. All seems to go totally well until it was just a dream. Turns out you're actually moving into Long Life Town as a poor family, only just father and son. This is where you quickly learn that everyone in this town seems to sort of dislike you in a way, just because you're poor, which is pretty harsh. Even with the policeman profiling you as a goddamn criminal just because of that. You do soon meet the love of your life, the same one from the dream. You try to give her a kiss, but come on, dude, it's reality! Why would you do that in public? So maybe you'll try writing a love letter. That might work. Dear Love Dog, I really, really love you, Love Dog. I love you very much. Please give me a kiss next time. And, well, okay, that obviously just won't cut it. So you gotta find some assistance. That one person who will help you is Mr. Suzuki, who hides out all alone in an underground manhole. I honestly think he looks like a weird Mr. Saturn knockoff. It's kind of funny. But more importantly, he teaches you the basics of kissing, how to write a love letter, and how all of that can successfully reach the girl's heart. Soon along the way though, you run into a big problem. You may stumble across this utility pole. I'm not kidding. His name is Dan Yamada, who's a teacher at the school. However, he's got some money malarkey problems with Suzuki, and because of that, he gets so angry he steals the entire love letter set. At Worldly Desire Temple, though, you can catch Yamada getting absolutely pummeled by the other teachers who criticize him for not paying them enough. At least I think that's how it goes down. And yes, those are the teachers. They're all like these random ass objects like a barrel or a sign with a face stuck on them. It's pretty weird already. They then kick Yamada down to the ground, steal parts of the love letter set, and split them up into the paper, pen, and ink. It's up to the boy to not only win the girl over, but to also get back the 3 pieces of set in each of the areas by solving a bunch of wacky environmental puzzles with weird-ass, funny-ass scenarios mixed in. All expected from an obscure game like this. And that's pretty much the extent of Chulip's premise, so let's go back home for the night. And holy shit, we really are poor! I mean, we gotta sleep on the floor for Christ's sake. On the next day, you're let off the hook, and the game starts officially. And when I say let you off the hook, I mean it. The game doesn't give clear direction for what to do next, and as such, on my first playthrough, I was pretty damn confused. A lot of stuff just happens with no explanation. Like, at one point I walked into the turtle bath during the day, and okay, sure. A bunch of these holes around too. I swear I kept finding and checking them, triggering these long cutscenes, and was just kinda lost on what purpose they really served, but okay, let me explain it all. The day and night cycle is prevalent, obviously. Every NPC moves around in real time, yada yada yada. Chulip, though, comes from the words chew and lip, so obviously this game is about kissing. You can kiss anyone. You can kiss the main characters by completing their side quests, but most of the time you'll be kissing the underground residents. They hide in those holes and only come out very briefly at a specific time, where you have to either wait or do something specific to make them viva, which will be your chance to lock lips. Fuck. You can get hints on their little puzzle by peeking into their holes, so that's what they're for. This in of itself is for sure an interesting and a kind of cool concept, as well as being very, very weird. Like, we could go down an entire rabbit hole with the logic and ethics behind this, but the very concept of kissing people to level up yourself similar to an RPG is incredibly bizarre. But it at least makes it so there's truly no other game quite like Chulip. You just gotta think, how did the designers even come up with this idea? Well, funnily enough, we actually know. Kimura has stated that the gimmick of kissing people came from an observation he made while he lived in the US. That being, he would notice couples kissing in public and would find that really intriguing. Yes, I am not kidding about that. That is actually how this game came about. Such a weird idea that stemmed from an equally weird observation, which I think extends to this game's personality. Simply put, I adore everything about the presentation here. First off, the character designs. They're equally as crude as they are silly. From the policeman having this Atlantic-sized head swinging around like a bobblehead, to Michelle's grotesque face where everyone talks like they're babbling this charming gibberish. Very reminiscent of Chibi Robo, I gotta say. Even the main character you play as, he's just kinda adorable. A fun fact, I thought he was a monkey at first, but he's not. Dude, I just love all the funny expressions he makes, how his eyes pop open, and the face he makes when he's sad. Oh, well, I guess it's more along the lines of discomfort, but Jesus, like, oh my god, dude, that face is just so good. His animations are funny too, his running being especially silly. I even like how every time he greets someone he says, "Oitsu." That's just great, dude. I like that guy. I also gotta mention the soundtrack, and I promise for good reason. It is actually one of, if not the most unique soundtrack I've ever heard in a video game. There's a lot of vocals implemented into the songs. I guess think like Katamari, most notably the acapella for Long Lifetown that goes like bum, boom, boom, bum, boom, boom, bum, bum, boom, bum. but also for some of the more quirky stuff. Like the song that plays when you take a bath with Leo the lion there. Like, just listen to this. Oh my god, dude, this is like actually the funniest song I've heard in my life. Like, you could tell the singer's just having the time of his life. It's just so jolly and makes me love this lion character even more. There's a few more gems in here, like the creepy ass title screen music, which has these hauntingly eerie yet kind of beautiful chanting. And the Scarecrow Field theme, of course, which is actually pretty catchy. But man, this game's OST is so good for so many reasons. It's just so weird, experimental, and silly, but it definitely gives Chulip its own feel, And here's a bit of trivia. It was all composed by one man, Hirofumi Taniguchi, who has also worked on Chibi Robo's soundtrack. Dude, that's so cool how these two games are actually connected like that. I mean, I thought it was a coincidence with the gibberish stuff, but that's really sick as hell. The World of Chulip is also super enjoyable. This is mostly seen with Long Life Town, but it's just this cozy atmosphere to all the areas and how they look. I think it's mostly the fact that the town is littered with details all to make you feel immersed in this compact Japanese town where you know everyone, using sort of realistic textures and all that. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just love the art style here, The world is actually fairly small. You only explore 4 different areas: Long Life Town, Worldly Desire Temple, Funny Bone City, and Scarecrow Field. Oh man, the factory is one of the coolest ones you go to though. It's like this cynical eternal hell of a workspace. Everyone's doing practically nothing for their jobs. They all look the same, wear the same outfits. Everyone is absolutely miserable at Funny Bone City. But they're still somehow motivated to get promoted? Whatever that means. That's why it's such a standout area though, and the story that goes along with it is pretty cool too. Not gonna spoil it though. I also think the day and night cycle further helps immerse you in these environments. As the day comes to an end, the music stops, the colors fade from the golden hour to nighttime, and you hear those little chimes in the background indicating your curfew. That shit gave me some mad Harvest Moon vibes, not gonna lie, specifically A Wonderful Life. I don't know, I just love that feeling in games when the music fades out as it approaches nighttime. Everyone's asleep except for the few who are still awake doing something, maybe mischievous. Ooh. And by the way, here's something even cooler. You'd think Natsumi being the publisher for both games, it'd just be a coincidence. But not exactly. I cross-checked the credits and found multiple people who worked on Chulip and the Harvest Moon series, which is neat and kind of makes sense. But anyways, I love the atmosphere, the world, the characters, almost everything about the presentation in this game. But going beyond that, you'll also hopefully learn that every character has a problem, which you need to fix by completing their side quests to earn their kiss. Whether it be Mr. Cheapod missing his golden raccoon, Dr. Dandy needing medicine for his disease, or Michelle wanting to eat an eggplant but can't because of a cult she's a part of. Yeah, it gets weird as hell fast. A lot of the time, you can only find out what their true issue is by basically stalking them. You gotta find out when they'll sort of open up to you about their problems. They may do things at only specific times in the day, and you can catch them in their act. And this is all very much like Majora's Mask, or even Animal Crossing to some extent. It's kind of like finding the postman in bed all by himself, Cafe in his hideout, maybe even getting to see Tom Nook after hours in his pajamas, and he'll still sell you stuff. Of course, at a way higher price, and he moves at the pace of a snail. Those kinds of discoveries that can only be made with a day and night cycle are satisfying and gratifying. Whatever that means. Chulip does such a good fucking job with that shish, and while it's at it, the game also incorporates genuinely meaningful character arcs too, which make the side quests so much more worthwhile. I'm not gonna spoil all of it, but believe me when I say this game is actually a freaking social commentary at times. Like, I'm not kidding. It's shown with some of the more important characters, but also with the underground residents in a way. There's a reason every single one of these guys hide out underground, completely isolated from society. They're all either artists or people with niche interests. Basically anything that this cynical, cruel World Chulip creates believes it cannot function in society. You want to be a musician? Well, good luck trying to make money off of that. How about you come work at the factory instead? Yeah, just crush all your dreams and aspirations like that. But at least you'll be making bank, right? All in all, I could be looking too deep into this. After all, at the end of the day, Chulip is just another weird, wacky Japanese game that didn't sell well and fell into obscurity. But underneath all of that, there's actually something sort of thought-provoking, which is something I was not expecting to say for this video. None of it is ever shoved in your face either. It's all tastefully displayed in a way that sort of blends in with the rest of this game's goofy portrayal of everything else. And the writing really lends itself well. It can be sort of funny sometimes. For example, Chuck here seems to really be into, chains? Saying of the day is painful and challenging, but feels good. Oh, you mean that? Okay, Chuck. That all being said, this is that part of the video. I've praised Chulip from here to the moon for everything it does so well. But for those of you who've actually played the game, well, you know what I'm talking about. This game's got some problems, and as much as I don't want to talk about them, I think it's only fair to acknowledge them and get them out of the way, because they sadly persist for the entire ride. First of all, this game is tedious. I think getting from point A to point B just takes a little too much time. The train system is really cool and helps make the world feel more organic, but there's a lot of waiting. You have to wait for it to arrive, watch the unskippable cutscene to finally get to your location. Chulip also has more unskippable scenes like this. Like every time you want to go to bed, you have to watch this long unskippable cutscene. And I've tried every button combination you could think of, and there's no way to skip it. Alongside that, there's also a plethora of problems with what you have to do to kiss the people in this game. And definitely only on the gameplay front, they're still enjoyable as all hell story-wise. I get it though, bigger side quests should be really challenging and satisfying to figure out, as I mentioned earlier. But sometimes too much of it relies on total RNG, or you know what, let's just call it luck. To not spoil anything, one of the optional quests makes you search through trash cans to find certain items, and it's completely up in the air when you'll find it. I remember on my first playthrough, I spent like an entire hour doing this, but for this video, I got it on like my first try. Thank God, dude, but it's still annoying. Chulip is also well known for being obtuse and cryptic. Again, a lot of the side quests makes you do some really specific things, the bathtub puzzle being a good example of this. In order to kiss Leo, you need to first dump water on yourself in this order. Right, left, then left, then balance on the yellow plate over here, take a bath, but then stop, make sure to leave as soon as your character opens your eyes, and boom. Yeah, I am not kidding about this. That's really absurd and funny, but it's just way too specific to be done without a walkthrough or something. And sure, the game does tell you in a few different ways, but those methods are so out of the way and obtuse, not many players are really gonna find that solution. And unfortunately, that sort of issue also extends to the stuff you do to kiss other residents. Like I said earlier too, looking in the holes will give you hints on when the underground citizens come out. But sometimes they won't, which will lead to a bunch of waiting. Yeah, it's not fun. Sometimes you could even miss out on the opportunity, and that means you gotta progress to the next day, which means watching that cutscene again. Ugh. A lot of the time, though, it'll feel like you were just at the right place at the right time, which I guess I'm thankful for. The puzzles you have to do for them also range from fine to kind of annoying to, oh my god! Okay, let's start with something like this dude in Scarecrow Field. His name is the 20-year-old guy, and no, I am not kidding, that is his actual official name. I have no idea why. I mean, what, did they look at this design and think, oh yeah, he's 20 years old. Anyway, his puzzle sucks! You wanna know what you have to do to get his kiss? You have to walk past him 50 times. I'm not joking. That's the puzzle. Like, why? At least it shows up for like half the day though, so you can get a good chunk of those gun clicks in, and you can handle him over the course of multiple days, which, thank God, honestly. But still, that's just ridiculous, dude. And then, there's Jigsaw. Had a hard-ass time with him on my first playthrough, so we gotta talk about him. This is one of the more elaborate kisses. Basically, Jigsaw is missing the other half of his face, so you gotta find the right piece for him by searching the area. They'll continuously keep spawning new pieces every few seconds, but here are where the issues lie. First of all, this guy is only accessible in Funny Bone Factory at night, after the factory closes and after everyone leaves. You have to hide out on one of the floors during the tour you could take where there's a lazy security guard, which you can find out by talking to one of the workers. A pretty lengthy process already, but that's not it. Jigsaw only appears for an hour in-game, which equates to 30 seconds. You only have 30 seconds to find the right piece, which, combined with the fact that you're already in a pretty inaccessible, hard-to-reach area, like, oh my god, I would just panic like fucking crazy, scrambling around this area like a total dumbass until it was all over and I have to try again the next day, doing the whole hideout thing all over again. It was infuriating, to say the least, but I did find a really good strategy. Here's how it goes. The moment Jigsaw pops up, go to his hole and trigger the text so it says, "Found a hole." This will pause the in-game timer, but will not pause the respawning of all these pieces, making it much easier to find what you're looking for. This made it infinitely less stressful, although I did spend like 20 whole minutes on this text since I was really trying to be careful. But of course, I mentioned all of this because I went for 100% in Chulip, so technically, all of what I just said in this entire section is completely optional. You don't have to do it. So really, this specific instance is barely even a problem with the game, which is great to say the least. But for me, once I handed that piece over to him, got that kiss, it was so relieving, dude. Finally got him out of the way. Oh wait, it looks like he dropped something. Alien Dictionary 2. Wait a minute. No, wait. This kiss actually is required. Sort of. That item I just picked up is required for solving a puzzle later in the game, but it technically isn't since it's used to gather more information, which you can just completely bypass, which I can tell you right now. So just in case, here's what Alien Dictionary 2 says. You're welcome, I guess. Well, with all that out of the way, I suppose it's important to say a lot of these problems do get mitigated heavily if you don't go for 100%, which is totally true. But alongside that, there's also the main quest. This game gets too ridiculous, too cryptic sometimes. It's to the point that, like, I've never seen another game do this kind of stuff. That's how crazy it gets. Probably one of the most famous or, infamous instances of this is the microgum. Once again, I guess not technically required for progressing because what you get is another Alien Dictionary, so I'll just put it up for your convenience. But okay, here's what you gotta do. You have to go near this very specific crack in the wall and chew the gum right as the clock hits 5. And your timing has to be almost perfect. It has to be right at the crack of 5. That's just insane. How did the game get away with this? And trust me, there's numerous other instances like this. You'll need a very specific item to use at a very specific place, and the game gives almost no hints about it. Well, they do give hints. They're just either really obtuse, or they're kinda non-existent because of a translation error. I'm not kidding. And this is for beating the game too. For some ungodly reason, the English version left out a vital clue that told you what item to get for something you need to progress near the end of the main story, which the Japanese version had. Whatever transpired between these two releases is beyond me, but my god, that is just messy. And because that part of the game is basically impossible to figure out without a guide or something, once again, I'll just say this for your consideration. It's the funny goal you have to use on the machine. Alright, so it seems like this game is utterly impossible to figure out. Every puzzle is obtuse and cryptic. It's absolutely ridiculous and bonkers how specific they can get too. This is literally one of the most insane games I've ever played that has dealt with that kind of shit. But to another degree, these kinds of things clearly had thought put into them. And I'm not necessarily talking about the puzzles themselves, although there are some genuinely good ones here though. There's this one part where you have to input a security code at the factory and the numbers end in 546. If you talk to one of the workers at that factory, they'll say the safe you're looking for is on floor 546. So you kind of make the connection that this security code isn't a literal code you put into the safe, but rather what floors you have to travel to with the train. I thought that was pretty cool. But back to what I was saying earlier, you'll come to realize that the developers clearly put a ton, and I mean a ton of effort into one of the most crucial systems that make up Chulip, the name cards. You can trade your name card with anyone and gain their card, where you can then show it to a bunch of different people. I tell you man, this system is actually pretty sick. So many pieces of dialogue were written just for this to add a boatload of lore to the world and characters, and through a series of trading and showing items to different people, you can actually figure out the more cryptic side quests with it, including the microgum shenanigans. I want to give a massive shout out to this video made by Backseat. I tell you, this is actually like the best Chulip video on the internet because he goes so in depth on this system and how detailed it really is. Gotta give massive kudos to him, he did his fucking research. Anyways, you can trigger a bunch of hidden and special cutscenes through playing pure detective. It's pretty sweet. What's not sweet is that the game never really highlights this feature. This hidden, incredibly well fleshed out feature just kinda goes unnoticed. Sure, there is that little tip you can get from Suzuki, but that's about it. Oh my god, that is a goddamn motherfucking shame. Chulip encourages you to take extensive notes about everything. The environment, what characters say and do, what they say about others. In fact, there is a moment where I even had to do this. Yeah, these are genuine notes I took for one specific puzzle in which you have to translate what a character is saying. Yeah, it's the alien dictionary stuff. It is pretty crazy and very tedious, but I find it kinda cool honestly. I think that's the best way I could sum up how I feel about the whole detective system though. It's really cool, but it's tedious as all hell. You have to talk to a bunch of characters, sift through their dialogue, sometimes I won't even have anything to say about the items you have, which really discouraged me from doing all of this. I mean, let's put it like this. You could either spend 3 hours taking notes and talking to all of the people in town, or just use a walkthrough. And believe it or not, even the game itself promoted the latter. The US release came with a manual that doubled as a walkthrough for pretty much the whole game. So even the developers, in some part, didn't have much confidence for players to solve all of the puzzles the intended way. Which makes a whole lot of sense, actually. Chulip was met with mixed reception at best when it first launched for pretty much all the problems I just described, including the hidden detective features. I'm sorry, but most players just didn't want to deal with that considering how freaking long it could take. Alongside that, the game wasn't friendly to newcomers. If you don't know what you're doing, chances are you could be punished for your curiosity. Something simple like checking a ledge and jumping off it kills you, or spinning on a park globe, same thing, getting shot by the policeman even. All of this can actually kill you in the beginning of the game where you have no hearts. This kind of thing is a little inexcusable. Games should always be accessible, especially in your first hour of playtime, cause with something like this, yeah, it's obvious why people didn't really like it when it first released. You could argue Chulip being punishing sort of exemplified the themes about society and how cruel and punishing it can be, But when you sacrifice gameplay for that, well, you see the problem. So to summarize, Chulip probably sold badly for 3 reasons I can think of. 1, it already had really weird character designs, presentation, soundtrack, all of that. 2, it released late in the PSU's life in the US. And 3, it was literally inaccessible in the playing sense. I think it's at that point that this game goes from niche to the niche of the niche. I have no idea what I just said. Basically, what I'm saying is, to have a game this niche, this polarizing, it's too much. And I'm afraid to admit that I fell into the same trap that those IGN reviewers did back in 2007. On my first playthrough, I didn't like Chulip that much. I was just so overwhelmed by its problems that I almost neglected all the amazing personality it really had. I also extensively used an online guide for pretty much the entire game, which really drew me out of the whole experience, you know? I just became more and more irritated from glancing at a walkthrough every 5 seconds. Wasn't fun. Because of all that, the first version of this video was actually much more negative. Trust me, if you read the early script, you would know. But while I was editing, I decided to play through Moon on Switch, just cause I was so intrigued. And that's when I slowly realized something. Yoshiro Kimura, the director for both Chulip and Moon, has a very unconventional design philosophy. In his eyes, he's always wanted to experiment, sort of rethink the medium as we know it. That was how Moon was created. It's literally considered an anti-RPG, going against everything traditional JRPGs like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest set up, like boss fights, turn-based combat, and instead creating a game where you spread love and help all the creatures the hero has violently killed. And here's the catch, Kimura and Lovedale as a whole created Moon as just sort of an experiment, not necessarily being fun to play, but to be something that certain people could appreciate for breaking boundaries. It didn't really matter if it was like a good playing thing. What mattered were the charming characters, story, the world. It was unlike anything else back in 1997. I'm telling you, it was ahead of its time. And that's sort of what Chulip is about. Kimura came back to direct this one, and instead of exploring this dreamlike surreal world full of wacky characters, here was a game where there were real, genuine people tucked inside their invisible cage with real problems all pertaining to society. And basically, if you didn't find this game enjoyable on a gameplay front and you could not look past that in any reasonable way, you basically fell into Kimura's trap. Okay, well, I guess it wasn't Kimura's trap, but it was a trap nonetheless. Of course, I'm not saying it's good that this game is extremely frustrating to play. I'm just saying you gotta open up a little more and appreciate what the developers were trying to do with Chulip. It's polarizing for sure. You really gotta sit down, forget all your common beliefs about what makes a game fun, and just play. I know it sounds counterintuitive as all hell, but hey, I'm kind of happy to say I feel like I've done that. Sort of. With this version of the video, I have fully replayed through the game, 100%, all the knowledge in my brain, and have tried to reevaluate, reform my opinions. And dude, this second playthrough kinda went pretty well. I beat the game way faster. Of course, after knowing what the frick I had to do now to get everyone's kiss, it went smoother too. And I'm not gonna lie, there were a few parts where it felt slightly cathartic to get all of these kisses from the underground people and clocking in my work back at home. Seeing all of those names, leveling up, well, obviously this lasted only in the early hours, not much so later where I had to do the bigger side quests. But nonetheless, it was sort of fun strategizing since I had a vague idea of when everyone would come out. And I think I can officially say, I am the only person on Earth to not only 100% this game once, but twice. Yeah, look at that. Ignore the other file. But this just goes to show how much this replay really mattered. Like, I feel like a lot of people could say once they replay some of their favorite games of all time, their love for it grows tenfold. It skyrockets. And that was certainly the same with this one for me. Now at this point of the video, I'm gonna say that if you do want to play Chulip, well, first I'd have to question, do you really want to play it even after all the tedious shit I mentioned? But if you're totally sure, I've got a few good tips that the game doesn't really tell you up front. But first of all, there are very specific underground residents that hold special abilities which will prove very useful in your time, trust me. There's the Hasty Wizard at Worldly Desired Temple. You kiss this guy and you get the Run ability, which is amazing. There's also the Sniper in Scarecrow Field, who gives you the ability to set your alarm clock to any time you want, which is actually a godlike power. Alongside this, for each area there's someone you have to kiss to unlock the save room in those areas, aka they'll clean the bathroom for you. At the temple, it's Agony Man, at the factory it's Ad Balloon, and at the field it's Target. By the way, make sure to kiss Sniper before you do Target, since you can't otherwise. But yeah, just make sure to kiss all of those people as soon as you can, I'd say. Super useful stuff you get out of it, seriously. Another really good tip is to use the comic books. You can read the comic books on the bench to skip time in different intervals depending on which book you buy. I just buy all 3 of them and keep them as permanent slots in your inventory. Do keep in mind that there's a small, and I mean very small, chance that your character will literally rip the book in half because it was so bad and he wasted 12 hours reading it, which is hilarious but also kind of annoying, so. Another thing, if you're having trouble making money, well, a really good early game strategy would be to check this specific trash can in the 3rd district of the town. You'll find plenty of frying pans which go for fairly decent prices at Mr. Teapot's store. I do also want to say that if you ever play this game, at least try the name card system for a bit, see if it's worth it to you. It probably won't be, if we're being brutally honest, so if that's the case and you can't go back, I'm just saying no one's stopping you from using a walkthrough online. So if you really have to, then go for it. Just saying, people can play games however they want, and you shouldn't make fun of them for that. So, yeah. And lastly, the buttons you press for the exercise are X, triangle, circle, then X again. You're welcome! Oh man, Jesus Christ. I talked for a good while about all the stuff I really wanted to say about Chulip, but now is the time where we get to the spoiler sections. Yeah, there are some really interesting things in this game I want to talk about really badly, but because they're so cool, I'm gonna put a spoiler warning. Though again, I'm not sure how many of you actually want to play this game, but just know this is a big heads up, alright? So, let's go! You may have heard me sort of mention it way earlier, but this game's got some wild ass scenarios. I talked a little about the Funny Bone Factory, which is pretty funny how everyone is just like depressed, but what you do at Scarecrow Field is also absolutely insane. This one involves UFOs and aliens. You first have to watch a UFO crash into the field with the girl's telescope, where after that you'll see the alien dude just kinda casually stroll around now. You gotta get some really specific nonsensical items for this dude, like a frying pan, an entire ass refrigerator, a computer, the works. And then later on at night you have to input a code into this machine at the top of the tower and insert some soda to turn this specific house into a music box which plays the melody you put in. Upon doing so, we'll let the alien return to his home universe, and you also find out he's a monkey. Like, this game is fucking weird, dude. And then you kiss his ass. Not literally. I especially love that you can actually see the monkey run around the field and then come out the other side in a spacesuit. Like, that's a really good detail. And all of this is just great, dude. I love it. And now, while Chulip can get super weird, wacky, and fun with all this, it also explores darker avenues. Again, like I mentioned earlier, this game is a social commentary at the end of the day. Totally unexpected, but oh man, I appreciate it. There's the big ol' side quest with Julie and Goro, which actually intertwines a ton of kisses. Think like the Anju and Cafe side quest from Majora, both really good long-winded side quests. I really recommend doing this one if you ever play this game for not only that, but the story it tells. It's one that showcases the toxic relationship between these two people, which also helps explain why the girl of your dreams stays away from them and practically becomes homeless. She just can't deal with this bullshit, and it's clear why. There are some pretty dark scenes which really left me surprised on my first run. And by the way, let me remind you, this is the same game where you can find a big poop in a trash can. God damn it, Populate! I also really love some of the puzzles you do for this quest. There's one part where you have to go to jail to rescue Goro, and to do this, you gotta get arrested. One of the ways you can break the law is by walking outside with your clothes on. Like, okay, can you think of any other game where you have to do that? I don't think so. Oh my god, policeman, why would you kiss him? He's like 14, and he's naked! Oh my fuck! At the jail cell, you have to do another puzzle, which is actually cleverly designed, involving you having to push specific buttons only when the controller rumbles. And look at that. You see it, right? This room's a freaking DualShock. That's so sick. And by the end of it all, it just feels really satisfying, you know? Not only solving the puzzles and getting all the kisses, but also fixing Julie and Goro's marriage, and getting kissed by Julie anyway. Yeah. But for real, I think this is Chulip at its best. It's when you actually help these people that have these real problems. And I think that's shown even better with Batian. Hands down, Batian is like my favorite character in this game, just for the journey he goes through, you know? He's a struggling, poor, miserable musician, always getting treated like trash from his neighbors, so when you hand over the classified ad for Funny Bone Factory, you'd expect him to light up. But not really. Sure, he's gonna be a salaryman, as he puts it, but at the cost of becoming severely depressed. I mean, after all, what's the point of making money if there's no use for it? If you have no time to use it? Most of your day is spent on taking the long train rides. It's a goddamn slog for him. You're thankfully able to put him out of his misery eventually by firing him after you get the boss card. Then he'll finally kiss you. Because, you know, he's actually happy now. I absolutely adore how this game sets us up. Like, at first you'd think just getting him a job alone would make him happy and you get the kiss right there. Done, you're good. But no, you slowly learn from all those train rides with him and what he says. God damn, he's just even sadder. I think there's this amazing relatability with Batian too, you know? I feel like if you're old enough to have or have had a job, you'd probably sympathize with what he felt for his journey to make it out of that tunnel. Because that's the thing, the idea of quote-unquote success versus real passion is an extremely difficult one to figure out. But there is a line between those two concepts. You just have to find out where, much like Batian. And I just had to give so much credit to this game for not shoving any of it in your face, keeping all of it still in this sort of goofy tone that this entire game is known for. It's not this big, contrasting idea that totally clashes with everything else. It's just this heavy weight it puts on you that's like all displayed in a cutesy yet straightforward style. That right there is the cherry on top. Because it's when you start to realize that these aren't just weird, strange-looking, bizarre Japanese characters in these weird, obscure Japanese games. They're people. They have real struggles, real emotions. It's tucked under every single one of these characters. I've tried my best to not refer to them as NPCs, because that's such a video gamey-ass term, you know? It's like calling them that is such a huge disservice to the amount of effort the developers and designers put in to make each of them so compelling and unique. This extends to the other side quests too, maybe not as deep and depressing as Batian's, but there's some good gems in here. Like the whole thing with Zombie Mika, this is another one of my favorites, dude. First of all, it is unbelievably well hidden. It's so out of the way. You have to wait until 2 AM at this specific little area in Worldly Desire Temple to trigger it. And it's like your first time seeing all of this, it's like mind freaking blown. And it gets even cooler. Turns out this Mika character is actually Leo's girlfriend, who you find out died in a car crash decades ago. And the way it all ends, man, is just so sweet. Like, you make the tea Mika requested for Leo, and he doesn't exactly remember what the taste of it means. But Mika, she sees Leo drinking that tea, and that alone is enough to make her happy, and you earn her kiss. That's just so fucking sad, yet heartwarming. God damn it, Chulip, why do you do this to me? This game is honestly so fucking lovable in so many different ways. Like, beneath all the frustrating, tedious, malarkey ass, cryptic ass, poo-poo ass shish it puts you through, there's so many genuine moments that really got to me. There's a lot you can discover on your own by helping the characters, including a few little secret things. I mean, you can even listen to a new song from Batian after kissing him. Like, dude, I never knew that. That's such good attention to detail, man. And if you're still here and you haven't played Chulip, well, I'm sorry you got spoiled on all of this cool-ass stuff. But I'm gonna put one last warning for the finale and ending, because while it's not much, it's pretty cool how this game ends. So stick around if you like, or don't, I guess. You can skip to the conclusion if you want, but we're gonna go with this. So, let's go! After getting all the pieces of the love letter set, you can finally write a good love letter. Finally. But in order to reach the girl's heart, you must enter a deep, dark hole at the park which you could catch Mr. Yamada dig during various story breaks. There's also a minor plot twist where your father was actually the principal of the school and is also one of the Mr. Saturn guys. Like, that's creepy. But this final stretch of game is actually really cool, especially aesthetically. It's got this downtown void kind of thing going on, liminal space feeling, I guess. Really cool looking. In this final endurance run, you gotta do tasks for the characters closest to the girl, like her parents, Julie and Goro. Julie's section is really strange though. You're basically defending her in court with giant chickens being the judges. Alright, so context-wise, the game tries to make it clear that almost no one in town likes Julie's grilled chicken, and here you have to make sure the right people testify, aka the ones who actually like it. There's literally only two you gotta do. After that is one of the craziest things this game throws at you. A 20-question test hosted by this fat, giant-ass cat. A reference to the cat who follows the girl in game. These questions are extremely specific. It's obvious the developers expected you to take extensive notes, which I definitely did. Yep. Overall, the atmosphere is tense. You got these creepy looking eyes staring at you through the doors, all the while the cat will randomly ridicule you for no apparent reason. But once you're done, you finally get to send the letter you just wrote. Dear Miss Love Dog, you are the best. Not in Long Life Town, not in the world, but in the universe. I love you. Love, Alex. And it worked. It actually reached her heart. And get this, afterwards a realistic hand grabs you and transports you to the lover's tree. I definitely forgot about that. Oh yeah, and the boy and girl kiss. Yay. I honestly really like that. I think going into this game, totally expecting how it will end, having that last stretch of gameplay build it all up was a really nice touch. And that is about it for Chulip. Wait a minute. No! Okay, for real, I did not expect this to be another long-ass video. But hey, at least I said everything I wanted to say about this game. God damn it, why do my videos have to be so fucking long? But yeah, in conclusion, I think it's absolute crime against humanity that more people don't talk about this game. Chulip is brimming with personality, start to finish, character by character, area by area. Everything about the presentation is so unique and lovable. Very akin to Japanese culture, but it becomes so much more than that when you look deeper into its writing. Sure, it is an absolute slog sometimes, it's directionless, it's almost impossible for a casual player to beat this game without a walkthrough, which is bad. This is for sure one of the most interesting, most polarizing things I've ever experienced in any form of media. But I think I'm willing to look past all of those glaring flaws and see it for what it truly is. This is one of the works that defined what Yoshiro Kimura and everyone else involved at Lovely Lake and its spin-off companies were all about. We're here to spread love, peace, solve everyone's problems, in a really goofy and fun way too, but not without touching on those deeper issues of society. I can't express how absolutely fascinated I've become with Lovely Lake in general after playing this, man. Their games have somehow made me sort of rethink the medium as a whole. I'm not kidding when I say that. But Chulip as a whole has made me more open-minded when it comes to the games I play nowadays, which is kind of nuts. I certainly wasn't expecting to be sort of wowed by this game, but here we are. Maybe I'm overhyping it a bit. I'm kinda glad I remade this video almost from scratch. That first revision of the script, I don't know, I just felt like it was just too negative. I think there's a difference between making a video feel pessimistic versus rightfully criticizing the game and putting a positive spin on things. Well, I don't know. But I hope it wasn't too negative with this video. I did have to address all the flaws, obviously, but yeah. The thing is, being negative is not really what I'm out here to do. I want to talk about these weird-ass Japanese games and convince you why they're so interesting, why they're worth talking about today. Sadly, it takes like 3 months for me to do that, and I've come to the sad realization that I'm not going to be able to make all the videos I want in my lifetime, at the rate I'm going at least. But hey, Chulip is cool, I like this game a lot, I actually adore it, and if you want to play it after all of that, well, I don't think you should pay $200 for it. Seriously, why is this game so expensive? It makes no sense. Just like emulate it or use a modded PS2, which is what I did, that's really the best you could do for now. There is a chance though that in the future we will get a modern port of Chulip very similar to Moon. I mean, Kimura has expressed time and time again his passion for Chulip on his YouTube channel, as well as the tiny yet very dedicated following Lovely Lake has in general. So I think it's very possible. If he ever does that, at the bare minimum, I think the translation could be improved a little bit. I'm mostly talking about the grammar and spelling errors that sometimes even resulted in a complete garbled of text. It's almost like, how did some of this even get past playtesting? They could also tweak the gameplay. That would take a lot of work. At least include the American manual as a bonus. That'd be fine, I guess. As for other Lovely Lake stuff, oh, let me tell you, dude, there's a giant rabbit hole to go down through with that. We could talk about Punchline's other game, Rule of Rose, but I think it's more appropriate I take a look at the one that started it all for the next one. So, thank you for watching, I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you in another 5 months. Bye.
Chika machu Chikamachu, Chikamachu.